nuestra comisión, con su presencia, el representante permanente de Afganistán. Excelencia, tiene usted la palabra.
Mr. Chairman, at the outset, let me congratulate you on your assumption of chairmanship of the Second Committee of the 17th session of the UN General Assembly and your Bureau members for their well-deserved elections. I'm certain that under your able leadership and guidance, the Second Committee will have productive and fruitful discussions for the forthcoming weeks. I would like to assure you of my delegation's full support and cooperation throughout the deliberations of issues concerned to this committee. I also wish to commend you, your predecessor, and his Bureau for their tireless efforts and successful leadership of the Second Committee during the last session. My delegation associates itself with the statements made yesterday by South Africa on behalf of the Group of 77, China and Bangladesh on behalf of the Group of Least Developed Countries, and Zambia on behalf of the Group of Landlocked Developing Countries. Mr. Chairman, 2015 is a unique year as three landmark conferences, namely the third UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai, Japan, the third International Conference on Financing for Development in Addis Ababa, and the UN Summit for the adoption of the post-2015 Development Agenda were held successfully. And last but not least, the COP21 on climate change is going to be held in Paris in December. Tremendous efforts and high ambitions were vested in these conferences. The collective will and unwavering determination of developing countries and developed partners, supported by engagement and contributions of all stakeholders, resulted in remarkable outcomes. The common goal for all these efforts is to eradicate poverty and hunger in all their forms, save our planet, and build the future we want. Mr. Chairman, last week our leaders in a historic summit unanimously adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This agenda addresses in a balanced manner the three dimensions of the sustainable development, namely economical, social, and environmental pillars, which are among the core issues of the Second Committee agenda. Hence, it is befitting to align our deliberations on the implementation of the 2030 Agenda by taking into account the guidance and commitments made by our heads of states and governments during the last week's summit. In this regard, the role of the UN system, particularly General Assembly, ECOSOC, and high-level political forum are crucial and conducive in the follow-up and realization of the 2030 Agenda. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy that the 2030 Development Agenda has recognized the special needs and challenges of the countries in special situations, particularly the LDCs, LLDCs, SIDs, as well as countries affected by conflict. In this connection, the Istanbul Programme of Action and the Vienna Programme of Action for Landlocked Developing Countries are highly important to comprehensively and practically address the special needs and challenges of the LDCs and LLDCs in the context of the 2030 Development Agenda. Mr. Chairman, as a member of the LDCs, LLDCs, and as a conflict-affected country, I would like to highlight the following points. As a prime victim of international terrorism and the conflict resulting from it, my country is combating terrorism on a daily basis on behalf of the international community and paying a very high price in terms of blood and resources to ensure peace and stability in the country, the region, and the world at large. There is no doubt that peace and security are fundamental for achieving sustainable development and economic growth. In this regard, we highly value Goal 16 of the SDGs, which addresses building peaceful and inclusive societies. Financing for development is a crucial factor in the implementation of the 2030 Development Agenda. In this regard, the realization of the commitments made in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda is of highly importance to us. As a country highly dependent on aid, we also recognize the great importance of official development assistance, ODA, to support our efforts for reaching sustainable development goals and economic growth. South-South cooperation as complement to North-South cooperation is an essential factor for developing countries in their endeavor for attaining sustainable development. Moreover, we cannot stress enough the added value of regional cooperation. We recognize that technology is a key means of implementation of the SDGs and the 2030 Agenda. The follow-up and review mechanism constitutes a crucial part of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. This cannot be achieved without accurate data. In this regard, we are looking forward to the outcome of the work of the UN Statistical Commission on developing global indicators in March 2016. We cannot ignore our vulnerability to climate change and natural disasters. In this regard, we hope that the 21st Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in Paris will result in a comprehensive and legally binding agreement. Last but not least, the revitalized global partnership is a must for the successful implementation of the 2030 Development Agenda. Mr. Chairman, Afghanistan's transformation decade, starting in 2015 and finishing in 2024, captures a big part of the 2030 Agenda and coincides with its commencement. Based on our 2005-2015 MDG report, we have had a mixed achievements and setbacks. In the past 14 years, some of our gains have suffered from a lack of consolidation, continuity, and sustainability. While poverty rate has remained constant for several years, we have made considerable progress in primary education, gender equality, and women empowerment. Child and maternal mortality rates have been reduced. Afghanistan will remain committed to developing strategies and policies to integrate our national development agenda with the 2030 Development Agenda. Although Afghanistan began to pursue its MDGs almost half a decade later than other member states, extending our deadline to 2020, Afghanistan is still committed to achieving the unfinished MDGs. In conclusion, I would like to reassure you of my delegation's constructive and efficient engagement throughout the discussions in this session. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Muchas gracias, señor embajador. El representante permanente alterno de Costa Rica,